U.S. President-elect Donald Trump said on Saturday he wants former national security official Kash Patel to lead the FBI, signaling plans to carry out his threat to eject the Bureau's current director, Christopher Wray. 44-year-old Patel is a Trump loyalist who advised both the Director of National Intelligence and Secretary of Defense during the Republicans' first term in the White House. He has previously called for stripping the FBI of its intelligence-gathering role and purging its ranks of any employee who refuses to support Trump's agenda.
That victim is Donald J. Trump.
In a September interview on a conservative podcast, Patel said, quote, "The biggest problem the FBI has come out of its intel shops. I'd break that component out of it. I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopen it the next day as a museum of the deep state." Current Director Wray's term does not expire until 2027. FBI directors are appointed to 10-year terms by law as a means of insulating the Bureau from politics. Trump himself appointed Wray to the role during his first term. But Wray has since come under fire from Trump and his supporters, who have accused the FBI and other federal agencies of weaponizing their law enforcement to silence critics on the right and target political enemies. It was under Wray that the FBI carried out a court-approved search at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate to look for classified documents. Wray has also faced criticism for his role overseeing a directive by Attorney General Merrick Garland aimed at working to protect local school boards from violent threats and harassment. An FBI spokesperson did not directly comment on Patel's nomination on Saturday, saying, quote, "Every day the men and women of the FBI continue to work to protect Americans from a growing array of threats. Director Wray's focus remains on the men and women of the FBI, the people we do the work with, and the people we do the work for." The appointment will need Senate approval. There will likely be pushback against Patel's nomination by Senate Democrats and possibly even some Republicans.
Videos released by the Syrian volunteer group the White Helmets on Sunday showed blown-out buildings and vehicles in a residential area of Idlib and injured people being moved into ambulances. Military sources say Russian and Syrian jets struck the rebel-held city in the north of the country on Sunday, as President Bashar al-Assad vowed to crush insurgents who had swept into the city of Aleppo. Reuters cannot independently verify the date of the White Helmets video, although local reports said there were strikes in the area. At least 7 people were killed and dozens injured, according to rescuers at the scene. The Syrian army and its ally Russia say they target the hideouts of insurgent groups and deny attacking civilians. Idlib province has fallen completely under rebel control in the boldest rebel assault for years, in a civil war where the front lines had largely been frozen since 2020. Insurgents swept into the city of Aleppo on Friday night, forcing the army to redeploy in the biggest challenge to Assad in years. In remarks published on state media, Assad said, "Terrorists only know the language of force, and it is the language we will crush them with." Video from Saturday showed rebels toppling a statue of Assad's brother in Aleppo, while displaced residents like Hamoud al-Shiki Kiari returned for the first time since 2016. Thank God, after 8 years' absence from our house and our family and our neighborhood, we went and saw and met everyone, our neighbors and our family, and greeted them all. A joy that can't be described and is very great, thanks to God, he said. Army sources said Syrian troops who had withdrawn from the city were now regrouping, and reinforcements were also being sent to help in the counterattack.
Romania's pro-EU leftist parties appear to have staved off a resurgent far-right in the parliamentary election Sunday. Initial results show a pro-Western coalition led by the Social Democrats has gained enough votes to form a government. However, the far-right will remain a substantial force in the legislature. Analysts say Romania is seeing its most fragmented parliament in decades. Far-right groupings had campaigned over budget problems and the cost of living and fears of spillover from the Ukraine war. Pro-European mainstream parties, meanwhile, have angered their voters with infighting and corruption allegations. Prime Minister Marcel Ciolacu spoke to supporters in Bucharest.
I believe that we must all look carefully at today's result. It is an important signal that Romanians have sent to the political class. In practice, let's continue to develop the country with European money, but at the same time protect our identity, national values, and faith.
Meanwhile, the leader of Romania's Hard Right Alliance for Uniting Romanians, George Simeon, claims the political establishment is guilty of an attack on democracy over the first-round presidential election. The country's top court is expected to rule Monday on whether to annul that vote, held late last month. That's after a shock result raised suspicions of interference in the campaign. A far-right candidate, Calin Georgescu, emerged from relative obscurity to become the frontrunner in the poll. The result ushered in support for ultranationalist, hard-right parties, some with overt pro-Russian sympathies. Romanian authorities say they have found evidence of meddling by hostile actors, and the Constitutional Court is yet to validate the election. Sunday's vote was the second of 3 consecutive ballots for both a new parliament and a new president. Who gets to form the government will depend on who wins the presidential election, since the president designates a prime minister, and the timeline for that is unclear.
U.S. President Joe Biden said on Sunday he had pardoned his son, Hunter Biden, who had been convicted of making false statements on a gun background check and illegally possessing a firearm. He had also pled guilty to federal tax charges. In a statement released by the White House, Biden explained his decision for the pardon, saying, quote, "No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son." The White House had said repeatedly that Biden would not pardon or commute any sentences given to his son. The younger Biden, a recovering drug addict, had become a target of Republicans, including President-elect Donald Trump. In a post on Truth Social, Trump called Biden's pardon, quote, "an abuse and miscarriage of justice." Hunter had faced sentencing for the false statements and gun convictions on Wednesday. In September, he pled guilty to federal charges of failing to pay $1.4 million in taxes while spending lavishly on drugs, sex workers, and luxury items. He faced sentencing in that case on December 16th. The president said people were almost never brought to trial for felony charges over how they filled out a gun form, and he said others who were late in paying taxes because of addiction but paid them back with interest and penalties as his son had, typically received, quote, non-criminal resolutions to their cases. Biden Sr. said he hoped Americans would understand, quote, why a father and a president would come to this decision. He said he had made up his mind over the weekend while celebrating Thanksgiving with his family, including Hunter.